Hollywood's most legendary director has a reputation that goes far beyond his cinematic genius. Martin Scorsese, a man known for his uncompromising vision, harbored some of the most intense professional rivalries in film history, especially with actresses who dared to challenge his legendary control. Most people don't realize that behind Scorsese's brilliant filmmaking lurked a series of explosive conflicts that would shock the entertainment world. From heated on-set arguments to career-destroying confrontations, these actresses learned the hard way what happens when you cross a master filmmaker. Take Cameron Diaz during Gangs of New York. Their relationship was anything but smooth. She walked onto the set as a rising Hollywood star, completely unaware of the brutal professional gauntlet awaiting her. Diaz's role as Jenny Everdeen was supposed to be her breakthrough dramatic performance, but instead became a nightmare of constant criticism and tension with Martin Scorsese. Insiders reveal that Scorsese found Diaz fundamentally miscast from the beginning. Her background in comedy and light-hearted roles made her seem painfully inexperienced in the gritty world of 19th-century New York gang culture. During early screen tests, Scorsese was reportedly overheard telling producers that she lacked the raw emotional depth required for such a complex character. The tension reached its peak during intense dramatic scenes. Diaz, used to more comedic roles, struggled to capture the raw vulnerability of Jenny. Scorsese's legendary perfectionism meant he would demand take after take, sometimes over 20 repetitions of the same scene. Crew members witnessed multiple instances where Diaz would break down in tears, feeling completely overwhelmed by his relentless critique. One particularly explosive moment occurred during a pivotal scene where Jenny confronts her past. Scorsese allegedly stopped filming multiple times, publicly criticizing her performance as superficial and completely unconvincing. Daniel Day-Lewis, known for his own intense method acting, was reportedly uncomfortable with the director's harsh approach. The professional relationship became so strained that Diaz considered walking off the set multiple times. Her Hollywood friends advised her to stick it out, recognizing that a role in a Scorsese film could make or break her dramatic credibility. Behind the scenes, she was working with acting coaches and spending hours trying to meet the director's impossible standards. Surprisingly, this brutal experience transformed Diaz as an actress. While the film didn't become the breakthrough she expected, it forced her to confront her limitations and push beyond her comfort zone. Scorsese's uncompromising vision, though painful, ultimately revealed a depth to Diaz that few believed she possessed. Years later, Diaz would reluctantly admit that the experience, while traumatic, was a turning point in her understanding of serious dramatic acting. It was a masterclass in survival, delivered by one of Hollywood's most unforgiving directors. Ellen Burstyn's experience was equally tumultuous. Her journey with Martin Scorsese during Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore was nothing short of a psychological warfare that would redefine her entire approach to acting. What began as a promising collaboration quickly transformed into one of the most challenging professional relationships in Hollywood history. Burstyn wasn't just an actress in the film, she was a co-creator, fighting for the authenticity of her character with every breath. Scorsese's vision clashed dramatically with her own feminist perspective, creating a behind-the-scenes tension that was electric and dangerous. She had already won an Oscar for her stage work, but Scorsese seemed determined to strip away every ounce of her previous performance style. The director's method was brutal and uncompromising. He would demand multiple takes that pushed Burstyn to her absolute emotional limits. Crew members recalled watching her break down multiple times, not from weakness, but from the intense emotional excavation Scorsese demanded. One particularly infamous scene required her to portray a single mother's raw vulnerability. Scorsese made her repeat it 27 times, each take stripping away another layer of her professional armor. What made their relationship truly complex was the mutual respect beneath the surface. Burstyn recognized Scorsese's genius, even as he systematically dismantled her traditional acting approach. She later described the experience as an emotional vivisection, painful, precise, but ultimately transformative. Behind-the-scenes reports suggest that Burstyn would often challenge Scorsese's direction, creating heated debates that would last hours. She wasn't just an actress taking direction, she was a collaborator fighting for the soul of the character. This approach both infuriated and impressed Scorsese, who respected actors who could stand their ground. The film became a turning point in both of their careers. Burstyn won an Academy Award, but the victory was hard-fought. She had survived what many considered an impossible professional challenge. Scorsese had found an actress capable of matching his intensity, beat for beat. Years later, Burstyn would reflect on the experience with a mixture of pain and pride. "Martin doesn't just direct," she once said. "He excavates. And sometimes, the excavation is more painful than the performance itself." Their collaboration was a masterclass in artistic tension, two powerful personalities colliding to create something truly extraordinary. It wasn't just a film, it was a battlefield of artistic vision. Juliette Lewis was just 18 when she stepped into the psychological minefield of Martin Scorsese's Cape Fear, a role that would simultaneously launch and nearly destroy her early career. What should have been a breakthrough performance became a brutal masterclass in cinematic intensity that would haunt her for years to come. Scorsese saw something raw and unpredictable in Lewis, a vulnerability that he was determined to exploit to its absolute limit. Her character, Danielle Beaudin, required a complex portrayal of teenage trauma and manipulation that pushed far beyond her previous acting experience. The director's approach was nothing short of psychological warfare. During screen tests and early filming, Scorsese would deliberately create emotionally charged environments to extract the most authentic performance possible. Lewis recalled feeling constantly on edge, never knowing when the next emotional ambush would come. Robert De Niro's method acting only intensified the pressure, creating an on-set atmosphere that was electric and terrifying. One particularly infamous moment occurred during a critical scene where Danielle confronts her family's attacker. Scorsese demanded take after take, pushing Lewis to emotional breaking points that most directors would never consider. Crew members watched in a mixture of awe and discomfort as the young actress was systematically stripped of her professional defenses. The physical and emotional toll was immense. Lewis would later describe the experience as a baptism by fire in Hollywood. Scorsese didn't just want a performance, he wanted a complete psychological deconstruction. Her scenes with De Niro became legendary, with the director orchestrating interactions that blurred the line between acting and genuine emotional trauma. Despite the brutal process, or perhaps because of it, Lewis delivered an Oscar-nominated performance that would define her early career. Scorsese had seen something in her that no other director had dared to explore, a raw, unfiltered, emotional landscape that most actors spend years trying to protect. It was a collaboration that would become legendary in Hollywood, a young actress and a master director locked in an intense battle of artistic vision. Barbara Hershey's involvement in The Last Temptation of Christ was far more than a simple acting role. It was a controversial journey that would test the limits of artistic expression, religious boundaries, and personal conviction. Her portrayal of Mary Magdalene became the epicenter of one of the most contentious films in cinematic history. From the moment Scorsese conceived the project, it was clear this would be no ordinary biblical narrative. The film was a theological powder keg, challenging centuries of religious iconography with a radical reimagining of Jesus Christ's human experience. Hershey found herself at the absolute center of this explosive artistic vision. Scorsese's approach was ruthlessly intellectual. He demanded that Hershey understand not just the character, but the complex, theological, and philosophical underpinnings of Mary Magdalene's role. Endless discussions would stretch late into the night, with Hershey being pushed to deconstruct every traditional understanding of her character. The production was a minefield of potential controversy. Religious groups were already threatening protests, and the studio was nervous. Hershey became more than an actress. She was a co-conspirator in Scorsese's radical artistic vision. Her portrayal needed to be simultaneously reverent and revolutionary. Behind-the-scenes tensions were constant. Scorsese would challenge every nuance of her performance, demanding a depth that went far beyond traditional biblical representations. Hershey recalled multiple instances where they would debate the theological implications of a single gesture or line delivery for hours. The physical demands were equally intense. Shooting in Morocco under brutal conditions, Hershey was required to maintain an emotional and physical commitment that pushed her to her absolute limits. Scorsese's perfectionism meant take after take, with each iteration stripping away another layer of conventional performance. When the film was finally released, it became a global controversy. Death threats, protests, and religious condemnation followed. Hershey found herself at the center of a storm that was part artistic statement, part spiritual rebellion. Scorsese had created more than a film. He had crafted a cultural hand grenade. Years later, Hershey would reflect on the experience as a defining moment in her career. "Martin doesn't just make movies," she once said. "He creates cultural earthquakes, and sometimes you're either brave enough to stand in the center or you're swept away by the tremors." It was a collaboration that would redefine the boundaries of artistic expression, religious representation, and cinematic courage. Sharon Stone's collision with Martin Scorsese during Casino was a perfect storm of two legendary personalities, each demanding, uncompromising, and absolutely certain of their artistic vision. What began as a promising collaboration quickly became one of Hollywood's most intense professional battlegrounds. Stone wasn't just an actress in the film, she was a force of nature determined to prove herself in a male-dominated narrative. Scorsese, known for his brutal honesty, saw her as both a challenge and an opportunity to deconstruct the traditional femme fatale archetype. From the first screen test, it was clear this would be no ordinary working relationship. The director's approach was surgical in its precision. He would dissect Stone's performance with a clinical intensity that left her simultaneously frustrated and fascinated. Crew members recalled multiple instances where Scorsese would stop filming, publicly critiquing her every movement, every inflection. Her character, Ginger McKenna, required a complex portrayal of vulnerability and manipulation that Scorsese was determined to extract at any cost. Behind the scenes, the tension was electric. Stone, already a Hollywood heavyweight, wasn't used to being so thoroughly challenged. Scorsese demanded she strip away every ounce of her previous performance style, pushing her to explore the darkest corners of her character's psychology. Robert De Niro's presence only intensified the pressure, creating an on-set dynamic that was part artistic collaboration, part psychological warfare. One legendary moment occurred during a pivotal scene where Ginger confronts her husband. Scorsese made Stone repeat the take over 30 times, each iteration stripping away another layer of her professional armor. Witnesses described it as a masterclass in directorial intensity. Stone pushed to her absolute emotional limit. The film became a turning point for Stone's career, challenging her previous typecasting and revealing a depth few had seen before. Her portrayal of Ginger McKenna was a complex tapestry of vulnerability, manipulation, and raw survival instinct, a performance that would ultimately earn her a Golden Globe and cement her status as a serious dramatic actress. Despite the intense conflicts, Stone and Scorsese shared a mutual respect that transcended their on-set battles. She later admitted that the experience was like being put through a professional crucible, where every weakness was exposed and every strength was forged under extreme pressure. The legacy of their collaboration extended far beyond the film itself. Casino became more than just another mob movie. It was a nuanced exploration of power, desperation, and the human capacity to survive in the most challenging circumstances. Stone's performance stood as a testament to her ability to transform under the most demanding artistic conditions. In Hollywood circles, their working relationship became the stuff of legend, a perfect storm of two uncompromising talents pushing each other to extraordinary creative heights. Long before Lorraine Bracco became a household name, her role in Goodfellas was a high-stakes gamble that would define her entire career. Unlike the glamorous mob wives portrayed in previous films, Bracco's Karen Hill was a raw, unfiltered exploration of a woman trapped in a world of criminal chaos and domestic terror. Bracco wasn't just an actress playing a part. She was a New York native who understood the intricate psychology of survival. Scorsese recognized this immediately, seeing in her an authenticity that went far beyond traditional Hollywood casting. Their collaboration was less a director-actor relationship and more a surgical dissection of female resilience in a male-dominated criminal underworld. The preparation was grueling. Bracco spent months immersed in research, interviewing real-life mob wives and understanding the complex emotional landscape of women living on the razor's edge of legality. Scorsese pushed her to deconstruct every romantic notion about mob life, demanding a performance that was simultaneously terrifying and heartbreakingly human. On set, the intensity was unrelenting. Scorsese wanted more than just a performance. He wanted a complete psychological transformation. Scenes with Ray Liotta became intricate dance of emotional manipulation, with Bracco required to convey volumes through the subtlest of gestures. Her character wasn't just a wife, she was a survivor, a co-conspirator, and ultimately a witness to her own destruction. The most challenging scenes explored the toxic dynamics of her marriage. Bracco had to navigate a complex emotional terrain where love, fear, and survival intersected. Scorsese would often require multiple takes, each time stripping away another layer of performative safety, demanding a raw, unfiltered truth. What emerged was a groundbreaking portrayal that defied every previous representation of mob wives in cinema. Bracco's Karen Hill was neither a victim nor a simple accomplice. She was a complex human being making impossible choices in an impossible world. Her performance became a masterclass in nuanced character study. The film transformed Bracco's career overnight. She became the first actress to truly deconstruct the mob wife archetype, winning critical acclaim and establishing herself as a serious dramatic performer. Her Oscar nomination was more than a personal achievement. It was a recognition of her ability to find humanity in the most challenging circumstances. Years later, Bracco would reflect on the experience as a pivotal moment of artistic transformation. She had walked into Scorsese's world as an actress and emerged as a cultural icon, having redefined an entire cinematic archetype. Hollywood's most legendary director left a trail of intense, transformative relationships that reshaped the careers of some of cinema's most powerful actresses. From Cameron Diaz to Lorraine Bracco, Scorsese didn't just direct, he challenged, pushed, and ultimately elevated the performances of those brave enough to stand in his creative crosshairs. These weren't just conflicts, but artistic crucibles that transformed talented actresses into true cinematic legends. Each woman emerged stronger, more complex, and more nuanced in their craft, proving that the most intense professional relationships often produce the most extraordinary art. But the story doesn't end here. There are countless more Hollywood secrets waiting to be uncovered, more behind-the-scenes battles that shape cinema as we know it. Want to dive deeper into Hollywood's most shocking untold stories? Don't just watch, become part of the conversation. Hit that like button, drop a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe for more.